Activist Rose Braz joining us live from San Francisco. Thank you for joining us here. So environmental risks of fracking aren't unique, though, to that method of extraction, I understand. Why such an outcry, then, if there are other methods of energy production that are just as harmful when it comes, of course, to fossil fuels?
Well, there's no doubt that oil and gas production in general is risky to human health and ecosystems and our future in terms of climate change. I think there are, however, some additional factors that are associated with fracking that make fracking a particularly risky form of energy development that have led to these massive protests you're seeing across the world, really. One has to do with there are more than 632 different chemicals used in the fracking process that we know are used in the fracking process. About 25% of them are known carcinogenics. They can cause cancer. We have evidence of water contamination from Demick, Pennsylvania to Pavilion, Wyoming to Parker County, Texas. These are associated with fracking. And the other thing that has happened is fracking has expanded oil and gas development into areas where it didn't previously occur. And a colleague of mine likes to call fracking oil and gas development on steroids. So many more communities are seeing fracking in their backyards. So these risks are coming right to their next door.
Do you think you can balance that, though, with the potential benefits of getting, because for better or worse, we are dependent on fossil fuels for our cars, for our petrochemical industry, for plastics, for example. It's all in there. The U.S. has helped boost its own economy because of shale gas exploration in this way. Europe may follow suit. Do you think that's worth the risk in terms of the benefits, in terms of things like energy independence?
Well, there is, the recent report by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change came out just a couple of weeks ago, and it reiterated what has been found before by the International Energy Agency. We need to keep about 2/3 of known fossil fuel reserves underground to stand even a chance of avoiding the worst impacts of climate change. So now is not the time to be delving into extremely risky new forms of fossil fuel development like fracking or acidization that are new forms that are using chemicals, millions of gallons of water, and exacerbating a climate crisis precisely at the time when we need to be moving toward truly green, clean, renewable energy. And so this is the wrong moment. We need to start keeping fossil fuels in the ground right now and eliminating these new, extreme, unconventional forms of energy extraction like fracking is the way to go, not expanding it. And I think communities around the world are recognizing this, and that's why you have a ban in France just upheld by the Supreme Court there in France. We have a moratorium in New York in this country, and we're here in California fighting to halt fracking in California.
There are some studies that have found adverse effects in many areas. There are other studies that are showing that there aren't negative consequences in other geographic areas. Could the issue be more about individual safety measures at drilling locations rather than the method itself?
There's a long history of communities being impacted by fracking and oil and gas development and families reaching confidential settlements with oil companies to receive any sort of compensation for the damages they've suffered. There's a long history of that happening here, and the reality is what we do know, even despite the money and the confidential settlements, are places like Pavilion, Wyoming, where the EPA came in and initial findings were that fracking chemicals had made their way into water supplies there. Demick, Pennsylvania, where people have been forced to buy bottled water because they were unable to drink their water. Places like Parker County, Texas. So despite the best efforts of really oil and gas companies to keep these damages under wraps, we're seeing more and more evidence of fracking's impacts. And even the best regulation can't make these impacts go away or these threats and risks go away, and particularly the risk to our climate. Here in California, we have 15 billion barrels of oil that they now believe are accessible through new fracking technologies, and really that is an amount of carbon dioxide, carbon pollution that is on par with what the U.S. emits in an entire year if we were to extract that and combust that. So we're talking about adding to this tons of CO2 to our environment and our climate precisely at the moment when we need to be moving away.
For jumping in here, but on top of that topic of California, where you are right now, the state did pass an anti-fracking measure, and there are others, I understand, that have followed suit. Are laws like that the answer, in your opinion, to stopping the practice?
Mm-hmm. You know, we believe that the practice is simply too risky to our air, our water, our public health, and our climate to continue. So what we are fighting for, along with communities all across this state and across this country, and actually internationally in these 200 actions that are going to be taking place tomorrow at the Global Frackdown, is for a ban on fracking.
All right, Rose Braz, thanks very much for your time.